What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Happy Friday. We are live here in Duffy's Tavern, home of the Hurricanes, right on the edge of Coral Gables. A lot of football this weekend, a lot of pro football. You got basketball rolling, Army, Navy. Want to watch this and all the other bowl games, playoff games, any football sports you want to check out in just a very homey environment. Duffy's Tavern right here. I'm with Peter Reese. Pete, how we doing?
Doing great, man. We got Canes Hoops tomorrow as well against Louisiana Monroe at the SCO. So come to Duffy's before or after. Grab a bite before you head over to the game. If not, hang out here, of course. But, yeah, man, this is it's going to be a weird weekend without – we have some stuff going on. We have, you said, Army, Navy, pro football, but – the weekend before the craziness. So just, started to get really excited last night watching like Kyle Field videos and getting myself amped up, man. I'm excited.
P will be out there. I'll be out there. It's going to be an awesome time. So we got Lance Roffers in the house with Upon Further Review, brought to you by Cannata Financial. We'll talk to him here in a second, just about the different matchups with Texas A&M, just how he sees the team. But there it is. Look at that. Fareed, say what's up next time.
Said just passed by Duffy's on the way to work, man. I was grabbing coffee before this and ran into someone who said he'd be at Duffy's for lunch today when I told him I was coming over here. So we're in the neighborhood, man. So come check Duffy's out.
All right, let's just, we'll usually do the intro, but let's just go right to it, man. We got Lance Roffers, the professor, with Upon Further Review, brought to you by Cannata Financial. Check out CannataFinancial.com. Lance, get in here. Wait, where is he?
Oh, he's not in here.
He's not in here.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I was gonna say, do you see something in the backstage that I don't yet? Because I don't see our boy there just yet.
We got a week to get into playoff form. We're working back up. We had the celebration of that big selection Sunday, so now we're just working our way back into playoff form. So let's see what's going on in the comments. Clutch, good morning. Mario Herrera, good morning. What Megan likes. The whole crew is out here ready for the big weekend. Pete, real quick, let's start this thing with, I want to put a stat up for some perspective, because this to me is a big one. And I'm pulling up a post. There's 7.7 million posts to choose from and counting on CanesInsight.com, number one community for Canes fans. But there was a post by my guy Orange Bowl Magic, which was really, to me, striking as far as just some context for where Miami's at after the last two seasons. Pete, this goes to what you talked about, the whole established relevance. Those of you who are older, even those of you who are younger and have grown up with it. I mean, it's been a long time since Miami has been anything close to relevant. So, Pete, look at this post here from my guy Orange Bowl Magic, which to me was a complete mind blow of a stat. Last two regular seasons, 20-4 for the Miami Hurricanes, as we know. Look at the other teams with a better record in the regular season in the last 2 years. Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, and BYU. 6. That's it. So that's where Miami's been hanging around the past two seasons now that this thing's fully up and running. That's the weight class that we're talking about, Pete. And, I mean, you've been saying the whole established relevance, raise the floor, make this something that's respectable and legit for recruits, for fans, for young people, for just old people that forgot. What does that stat tell you?
Yeah, that we're in the mix, and I know that people will say the question of, is Miami back? Is Miami back? They're not back until they win the championship. We understand that at the literal sense, right? But Miami's relevant again. That's what, to me, back is. And I know there will be people in the comments that disagree with that, but that's what back is. And you can't, when we ask that question so much over the last 15 years, because every year it's been asked, anytime that there's been a little bit of hope, every time we ask that question, everyone tries to put a stamp on what does that actually mean. And then you obviously have the people who say they got to win the AC championship, they got to win championship. Back is relevance. If you have to ask the question, they aren't back yet. And if we're going to stay relevant, then we're back. And I feel like they're at the point now with Mario where You've established what the floor is. And I'm not saying you're making the playoff every single year. That's not what I'm saying. Like, you're going to be in the mix, and every game you play is going to have playoff implications.
Absolutely. So let's bring in the professor, Lance Roffers, upon further review, brought to you by Cannata Financial. So, Lance, the part here where we're already talking about, which is last 2 regular seasons, only 6 teams have a better record than Miami at 20-4, which is, again, Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, BYU. One of those teams you beat. It's pretty nice company for this program, given the 7-win average that we've seen for the past 20 years. So you, just as a longtime fan, you think you're around my age, right? You're in your 40s. So, like, just putting this all in context and seeing how this thing looks.
No, I'm not a day over 29, first off. Let's be real here. So can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
There's some sound stuff, so I threw some earbuds on here. But, yeah, I don't take this for granted, right? The 10 wins, and I know you used to play 11 growing up and all that. Now we play 12. But 10 wins is not something that you see every year. And Miami's gone through some dark times. They've had some probationary years and things like that. But even recently, I mean, what was it? 4 years ago, we lost to Middle Tennessee State, guys. And we didn't just lose; we got hammered in that game. And to see where we've come from then to now, to where that would never happen right now, like the way they've got this program set, the way that the floor has been raised just from physicality and from the line of scrimmage game that they play. That's the first thing that you do whenever you build up those lines like that, is you kind of remove some of that downside, right? You're not going to lose to those FIU, Middle Tennessee State type teams whenever you're able to just control the line of scrimmage like that without something fluky happening, right? And so they've kind of moved from that. That was like the first step, right, of raising the floor and just kind of removing some of those pitfalls that you've seen. Then kind of the second one is really exactly what Pete talked about, right? Moving back to relevance, to where you're not having the 5 and 7s. You're not happy to go to a bowl game. Really, at this point, I think the expectation is to be in contention for playoffs every year, especially when they're going to be moving to 16, right? I think a top 16 program each year is a reasonable expectation for what Miami is and should be, and the investment that they're seeing. So I don't take any of that for granted. I've seen the lows as I've grown up. My first Miami game coincidentally was their first championship, against Nebraska, right? I was very young, so we're going back to my 29 there, but I was very young, and that was my first game. That's what got me hooked on them. And so now, seeing them at 10-2 is not where you want to be as far as like the ultimate goal, right? With this schedule, maybe we should have been 12-0. But if you'd have told me before the season that we were going 10-2, going to the playoff, having a chance, I'd have been over the moon based on what we've seen over the last 20 plus years. So long intro there, but for me, I believe Miami is back. I do believe they are back to relevance. I do believe that they do have expectations back to where they should be. Are they back in the minds of like the Joey Galloways and your, Missouri neighbor who doesn't care about the Canes? That's something that only those people can answer. But at a national level, when you're a playoff team, and last year, we were one of the first teams out, I do believe Miami's back.
By the way, shout out to Joe and the eEarn team in the comments, man. Great stuff going on over there with eEarn and their show. But Lance, one line in this thing. Oh, that's fine. I'll just read it. One line in this thing that caught my attention the most, because talk about our relevance, right? College football, since we've been doing this, is not just about your success, about your success relative to your rivals. Growing up, obviously, Florida State, those are the teams. Look at this. We've won more 20-plus point games, meaning we win by more than 20 in the past 2 years, 13 total, then FSU and UF have won total in their respective seasons. So FSU has 7 wins in the last 2 years. UF has 11 wins in the last 2 years. We've won 13 by 20 plus or more. So that just shows you, and of course, 4-0 against those programs. So, and I don't believe any of those games were really close. In fact, none of them were close. The last FSU game was technically close, but everybody that's watched it was a blowout. So that could not be.
I was a little worried there at the end.
We're a little bit worried.
I never got worried in that game. It was going to take something magical for them.
I don't know, man. Lance, when they lined up for that onside kick, or the second onside kick they did there, that one worried me.
Yeah, no, I was never worried. That game was always in control. If you look at the win expectancies, it was always way up there. Now, I'm not giving Florida State any credit, but as an old head like myself growing up, I mean, guys, we beat Florida, we beat Florida State, we beat Notre Dame, we beat Virginia Tech at their place while they're celebrating at a hire of a new coach. I mean, just think about like the revenge and the rivalry, like just cachet that this season brought for us older Miami fans, where we've really kind of grew up. Honestly, Notre Dame was the team that we really disliked growing up. I think we disliked Florida State because they were a rival, but I think we respected them because every year, we were going head to head with them. Bowden gave us credit. We gave them credit, for just being strong programs and respecting one another. Those players all grew up together. But Notre Dame, no, we did not like Notre Dame like at all. Like, the Lou Holtz and those kinds of things growing up, the way they framed Miami, the way they framed the players and attacked them personally and their character, and like just kind of like tried to act like they were above it all. At no point have I felt any sympathy or feel bad for Notre Dame. What happens? Do I think they should have been over Alabama? Yes. Am I glad they got left out? Heck yes, I am. I love seeing their pain. I want to see Notre Dame cry every day of my fandom. Every day of my fandom, I want to see Notre Dame cry, and I want to see them hurt. I want to see their pain. I want to see them screwed over, because they did that to Miami for years. They stole a national championship from Miami back in the day as well. So Notre Dame can EAD, okay? Everything about them, I do not care if they get anything good happening to them ever. So they got snubbed, and I love it.
I got bad news, Lance, in terms of snubs. Pete, there was a big move in the coaching community. Shannon Dawson had been interviewed for Coastal Carolina.
I was gonna say, Lance, I'm surprised you were able to get up out of bed and get on with us this morning, as Ryan Beard, Missouri State head coach, the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. Man, how are you feeling about that move?
You know what? It has been a great year in the Roffers household for many reasons. I'm blessed beyond what I would ever deserve in life and family. And I am a split fan. I'm spent 7-8 years of my life on Missouri State's campus. That is a graduate degree for all you people listening. Lots of people go to school for 7 years. They're called doctors, right? But so I spent a lot of time there. My wife spent a lot of time there. We met in grad school there. So I got a lot of love for Missouri State, and always will. Their program for the first time this year moved up to FBS. So this is their first year in FBS, and I believe they went 7-5, but 7-3 against G5 teams in their first year. Guys, they had not won, and this is a Miami podcast. I won't spend too much time, but they had not won a game against an FBS opponent since 1989. Before this year, and they won 7 of them this year, or I guess 6 if we're going to be honest, because one of them was an FCS. But anyway, so what a great year. And what happens when you have success, right? Other programs come along, they want to steal your coach. The guy's a great dude. Gotten to know him just a little bit, being around the program like I am. Good dude. Missouri State's not a rich program. Lived in Springfield, Missouri. It's not a lot of money. So hey, he's going to go get more money, go live in Myrtle Beach, take his family. He's the son-in-law of Bobby Petrino. A lot of people probably don't know that, but he married Petrino's daughter. But he took over after Petrino left. Petrino was the coach here for a few years, and that's kind of how it all came about. Good chance Petrino's son actually gets the head coach job now that Beard has left. He's the OC here at Missouri State. So
interesting. And again, there is a tie-in here, obviously, that Shannon Dawson did interview for that Coastal Carolina job. EJ says, Shannon entertaining Coastal Carolina head coach interviews. Crazy, live life in the 305, enjoy the weapons Mario recruits you. Listen, Myrtle Beach is not a bad place. I feel like, from what I understand, I think if that would have been one of those places that it's been a solid program over the years, Jamie Chadwell was there. They have a pretty good thing going generally. I think it's
golf capital, you know.
Yeah, I think he would have been. I think he would have been interested. Obviously, he was interested, but I think he would have taken that job if offered. Right now, from what I understand, the coast is pretty clear when it comes to Dawson. But the domino effect of this Michigan situation? Does Texas come open, and then there's another domino effect there? But for the time being, I think Miami's in the clear in terms of Dawson leaving right now.
Yeah, it's just part of the game, right? You know, you've got the portal era. You're always worried about your players, but you worry about your coaches as well, right? Other than maybe Mario, who's kind of like a Miami lifer at this point, most likely. You're worried about all your coaches, but that's good. That's good. You know, that means you're having success as a program. That means you're doing something right with the coaches that you're evaluating and developing and the players. I wish all these guys nothing but success, all the players, all the coaches, right? You know, you got to make decisions that are the best for you, and only you know what's the right fit for you. And, you know, our comments and our fans, we think to ourselves, why would you ever leave? You know, what the situation you have for you know, a smaller program like that. It's part of the deal. Some people, they want to be the head guy. They want to run a program. They want to be they want that opportunity. And some players love to be just a coordinator. I say but they love that. They love to like own their side of the ball and be involved with that and stay out of the public limelight. It really is just an individual decision. We know Dawson wants to be a head coach. This is the second year in a row that he's had at least interviews for head coaching positions. I don't know if he had any offers and just decided to stay. I don't think it's about money when you start making the seven figures every year, right? I mean, once you become $1 million salaries, you know, now it's like, okay, what's best for my long-term outlook? What's happiness to me? And we always got to remember the wife factor, right? You know, what does the wife think of things and these moves and all that comes with that? And that family matters as well to a lot of them. And, you know, hopefully Dawson sticks around. I think Dawson has done a really good job this year as we've gone along, like doing counters to some of the things that the defense figured out in that midseason lull. I give both Mario and Dawson a lot of credit. Some of the things that the fan base was complaining about, some of the things that maybe weren't going well on film when I would review some of the games, they've really made counters to those. It isn't about like just never running inside zone, right? It's about counters in big moments. It's about adjusting and having a play in your back pocket for the moment that you need it and dialing up some of those explosives. And we've really seen that since the SMU game. Whatever happened inside that building, you know, those coaches did something that a lot of head coaches in my experience, a lot of offensive coordinators in my experience don't do. And that really is adjusting to what no longer is working and the adjustments that your opponents have. So I give Dawson a lot of credit. I think he deserves a head coach opportunity at some of these places. He's really implemented the entire system that Miami has. It's quite a bit different than what they did at Oregon. So, you know, it's not like a Mario mandate. And I've been impressed with Dawson this year as the year's gone along. Now, having Cam Ward and Carson Beck in back-to-back years is not a terrible thing to have, right? And
best pass protection in the country.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt either, right? So do I think it's all Dawson? I don't. I do think talent plays a part, right? And if he goes off and leaves for one of these smaller G5 or FCS jobs, you know, I have my doubts the amount of success that he'll have as the head man, but we'll see if that's what he decides to do.
A couple comments I want to get to, Lance. First of all, great one from Phil here. Good girls go to heaven, bad girls go to Myrtle Beach. That feels like something you'll see on a T-shirt at one of those novelty shops out there.
I want to visit Myrtle Beach now. You know,
I've never been.
I went a couple times for recruiting purposes, and yes, what I can say is that now looking back on it, I was probably swayed by looking at the golf courses in the area.
Okay.
More than everything else, but Dawson's a golf guy, so I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
Great comment from Tony. And Tony was asking baseball questions. I was just messing with him last time. We love baseball questions on the show. Got a whole baseball show we do. But Tony's asking, he's saying, we spent off seasons firing coordinators. Now we're fighting to keep them. It's a refreshing change. I could not agree more with that. And Lance, you know,
That's a different Tony, by the way. That's not.
Oh, it is a different Tony.
It's not the same Tony that asked the baseball question now.
All right. Well, shout out to all the Tonys. But with that comment right there, right, it's true. I mean, P, we've talked about it. We've done the show. Last year, we're firing Guidry. We're doing all this stuff here at this time, and that was the content of our shows. Now we're trying to keep guys. How much does keeping coordinators, when you think about like in Indiana, right, where they've had the same guys forever? I mean, that's been the same language for a long, long time on both sides of the ball with Cignetti. How important is it to keep that continuity going as you're trying to build a program? And look, some of it, Alabama lost coordinators all the time. Some of it's just the health of the program. They leave because they're doing good. But how much does it help to have continuity?
Yeah, that's an interesting question to answer, right? Because I'd be talking out of both sides of my mouth here. We have a first-year defensive coordinator who's taken a defense from one of the worst we've seen to one of the best we've seen at Miami in 25 years, right? So how much did that matter, right? I go to Tua Tagovailoa. He never had the same offensive coordinator from his junior year of high school until like just recently in the NFL, and was awesome in college, right? Several of these quarterbacks have not had the same offensive coordinator each year. But what I will say is, does it hurt? No, it certainly doesn't hurt to have the same system in place, to have players not having to relearn, everything about the verbiage and what do they do as far as certain situations go. To me, that continuity really plays if you can have a system that takes root, right? So like if you have the same system for 3, 4, 5 years and it does what I call taking root, to where the players, they kind of grow up in that system, they get recruited to that system, they know the system that you're going to be running, they know the culture, the old guys lead the young guys, in the system, and they've kind of grown up in it. And then if maybe as you lose a coordinator, you have a new coordinator who comes in that runs a similar system that is just kind of like what your roots are, I do think that becomes, a benefit. But overall, the players win games, players make plays, right? The coaches, I fall back on the fact that these coaches are all running 70% of the same plays. Maybe you're structurally different, but everybody runs inside zone. Everybody runs duo. Everybody runs glance. Everybody runs RPOs. Everybody runs bubbles, right? It's just, what are you attaching to it? What are you countering with it? Do you have the same look and then you're making something different, right? So all these coaches are running the same core principles, and it's really about like the window dressing and then the feel of calling those plays. So every week I get to glance Roffers. You know what? I really love that comment. That's funny. I'll have to make that like one of my gaming names or something like that. So.
All right, Lance, before we move on to the Texas A&M game and some key matchups, which we'll be talking about, we got 2 weeks to talk about it, right? This week and next. But let's talk a little bit about Cannata Financial, who is presenting this segment every single week. By the way, I'll see him at Texas A&M. He got his tickets.
He did what now?
No, I'm gonna see him at College Station. He got his tickets. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Tell us about Sebastian Cannata, Cannata Financial.
Yeah, Sebastian's our guy. He's out there in Atlanta. He's a transplant fan, but kept his season tickets, and like you just said, he travels, comes to these games. But he's got a year-end promo for next couple of weeks. If you're a service-based business earning under $1 million a year, and you need more clarity and control of your finances as we head into like 2026, Cannata Financial is introducing the 2026 planning and profit package. It is a focused one-on-one consulting engagement. It's really designed to help you step into the new year with confidence, strategy, a clear financial plan. The package brings together the best elements of a 2026 financial roadmap. You hear me talk about that every week, kind of what I do in my day job, a financial health and strategy package, and just basically a finance optimization engagement, right? To where we're going to try and Cannata's going to try and engage with your business, optimize what it is that you're doing. All of this is in one place. It's a hands-on, personalized, and it gives you direct access to a CFO who will, sit down with you, review your numbers, your business, strengthen everything for you. And as you walk away, you're going to walk away with a financial plan and budget for 26, KPIs tailored to you, pricing guidance that supports profitability. And most importantly, you're going to walk away with confidence, right? So normal pricing for this is around $1,995 for a limited time. If you call and mention the CanesInSight package, it will be $995. That's a
so $1,000 discount just for saying when you call Cannata Financial. Click the link, by the way, it's in the bio, CannataFinancial.com. That's $1,000 discount.
What a deal! So click the link in the show notes, like Danny mentioned there. Support a Cane, a lifelong Cane fan just like you. Maybe give them a shout out to the playoffs as you give them a call, and let Cannata Financial set you up for 2026.
Awesome. Real quick before we get into the matchup, also want to shout out our friends at UHealth Sports, University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. If you're an active person, athlete, you know how hard it is to sit on the injured list. Keontae Scott hoping to get him off there. Maybe even try to hack your own rehab, come back early. But if compromising your movement or performance is not an option, call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute. Whether it's elite competition with Miami Hurricanes athletics or everyday movement, the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute is the trusted choice for those who demand excellence. Set an appointment today at uhealthsports.com. All right, Lance, so I want to start with this one. There's a lot to talk about with this Texas A&M Miami game, but I want to focus it a little bit. What is the matchup? The matchup that to you is the key matchup? We'll go around the horn. I want to get Peter's thoughts on this. And what starting with you, what is the key matchup in your view? It could be a unit, it could be an individual player matchup you think is most important to this game next Saturday?
Yeah, everything with Texas A&M's defense starts on their front. So Texas A&M's front four and the games that they play up front, they are a heavy stunting, overload, slide, sim pressure package front, and their front makes their entire defense go. So if Miami can block them up, if Fletcher, the running back, slides and picks the right place to, engage in extra coverage, if Miami stops Texas A&M's front, or at least controls Texas A&M's front, I'm confident they win the game.
Key, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump on the same thing you said, but I really think that Cassius Howell-Markel Bell matchup, man, just talking to some people around the program, that's one that a lot of people have circled, because Howell does some things that has given Bell issues, over the past couple seasons. Now, albeit I think that he also locks up the guy across from him a lot more than people realize, that when he does get beat with speed, it gets magnified. And obviously that's been the type of guy that has given him issues. But I think if they contain him, and again, this is him, I think you might see Bauman, as an extra blocker at times. Miami can't get into third in these long situations, because that's when, as you were like, that's I think an overriding theme that I've heard from some people inside, is that they've got to stay away from those 3rd and 8+, 3rd and 9+, because that's when A&M likes to take advantage.
Yeah, I've got the show notes, we'll jump into that, but just to kind of touch on a couple of things you said there, that's what Texas A&M wants to do. They want to live in that 3rd and 7, and they're number 1 in the country, for a reason, because of the packages that they put together at that. And then you're exactly right. What Hal does really has given Bell problems at times. So Hal has an outside jab step and cross face inside move that's as quick as anybody you're going to see. Maybe David Bailey out there at Texas Tech has a quicker move, but he's one of the only guys in the entire country that does that move better. And with Bell specifically, if you were asking me to give a draft profile of him, and on the opportunities for growth area, that would be number 1, is the fact of the ability to shift from an outside step to, handle that inside cross face move that these quick twitch edges do. And that's what Hal wants to do, and he will save that for those big moments, right? Those 3rd and 2s, those, the long pass plays late in the game, up 3, trying to close it out. Those are the times when he'll save that. And that's what Bell has to avoid in this game.
Yeah, so, spoiler, I had the same matchup. I posted it yesterday on CanesInSight. So I'm not going to present a different view on that, but yeah, I agree totally. The inside move, I think back to Antwell APR, forgot forget his name.
Antoine Power Ryland.
Yeah, he was a similar type of rusher, gave Bell some problems. That was a different Bell than we have now. But yeah, certainly the speed rush doesn't bother me as much because I think Bell with his length can handle that. But the inside move is a little different animal. I'll put a different spin on it, though. I want to answer this, Lance, because, again, I had the same.
Here we go. Little music
here. Yeah. We got to get that one off here. Although, I don't know. Maybe you guys let us know how you like the music. But, I'll put a different spin.
Looked like Steve Nash the other day dancing right there.
I'll put a different spin on the question because, yes, that's going to be a pass rush kind of issue for Bell potentially. But if you look at Texas A&M against Texas, you had tremendous success for Texas running off tackle. And obviously Bell can engulf Cassius Howell in that matchup, you would think. So that's a little bit of a weakness on a weakness because Miami's not a big outside the tackles running team. Run inside the tackles more than pretty much any team in the country besides maybe Baylor. We all know that story. But Texas A&M, struggles out there. So how do you see that going as far as attacking these smaller defensive ends with our bigger tackles and running maybe in a way that we're not used to running?
Don't get it twisted, right? Miami's strong up front, right? And you touched on it a little bit earlier too, Pete, where, maybe the fan perception of Markel Bell doesn't line up with the reality of what they ask Markel Bell to do, right? He does not get as much assistance and help on the left side as Malinois gets on the right side, right? And Malinois is the one, that everyone kind of thinks of as like the elite player. And don't get me wrong, he is very good. But Bell is left on an island even more than Malinois, and he has to do both, right? He has to handle that inside move without assistance from your left guard much because they're asking that left guard to get into the second level so much on their duo and their inside zone run game, right? Just to your point there, Danny, that isn't what Miami's DNA is as a run team, right? Where that's just your first read as a running back, those kinds of things. I think what you can see in this particular game is you could see some more down blocking from Markel Bell because exactly what you talked about, right? His size, it may be a detriment a little bit on that inside quick move that we talked about for Hal, but it's a benefit, when you're talking about that power run game to where maybe you can wash him down inside just a little bit. And then maybe you kind of hit some counters off of it behind that. Most likely with Pringle, he's going to be a little bit more of your counter outside type runner. But you're going to see I think you're going to see some off tackle runs in this game just because of the fact that Miami has been running it a little bit more. I do believe that, the Tony in the backfield with the Pringle alignment that we've seen more and more as the season has gone along will give Texas A&M some credit or some trouble in this game as well, just because of the whole matching up with that. You can actually run out of that formation because Tony can block, right? He's not a guy that won't block for you as at his size, right? So you can do some different things with that to try and hit some of your outside game without changing the entire structure of what you do offensively. I think it's pretty well known at this point, Dawson's tangent earlier in the year, you tell me how we're going to run outside and do some of those things, right? And what he means by that is that's just the framework of what they do from, an offensive system and schematic standpoint. It's not going to be changed mid-year, but you can run some where we have counters off of that. And I think that's the way you'll take advantage of that some. For me, I kind of put notes together each week as we talk about this. One of the things that I believe Miami can do in this game is run duo and make Texas A&M just tackle over and over and over. They're a little bit smaller at the second level. Their DBs do not tackle the best, in my opinion. I think they're feisty and they'll probably be fired up, for a playoff game at home at the beginning of the game. But come third quarter, fourth quarter, if you stick with that and you have a lead, does Texas A&M want to continue to tackle inside is something that I would test them in this game.
Alec Cohen says Pete's evaluating his next coffee review. Pete's getting a lot of love for his coffee reviews. Lance, I don't know if you're a coffee aficionado, but
Oh, my friend, I'm a 6-7 cup a day guy. So
yeah. Whoa.
A lot of
Really?
tooth. Yeah, I've learned the more coffee you drink, you got to brush your teeth more. I learned that the hard way, especially when you're on TV every day. So
my wife makes me brush my teeth before I can kiss her in the morning. So yeah, definitely get that one. But no, I can drink coffee at 8 o'clock at night and it doesn't bother me at all. So I'm a big coffee guy. And Mario.
How many have you had this morning already?
3.
Woo! Wow,
man,
impressive, man. I try to like. I used to be really bad with the Cuban coffee. I used to do like 3 to 4 coladas a day, which that's like the big boy portion, like this. That's not the little cups.
Okay.
And it really messed my stomach up, so I had to chill on that. But 6 to 7 a day, cups of like good old American coffee. Like, what are we doing here?
Dark roast, brother. Dark roast.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Maybe get some espresso.
We gotta talk offline, man.
What's your bean of choice?
Yeah,
man, whatever you put in front of me, I'll drink it. I'm not one of these soft soy boys. You give me whatever bean and we'll take it down. So
I'll tell you what, man. This you're a numbers guy, so I get it. You need the extra caffeination. That's crazy.
I'll tell you who needs some extra caffeination.
You got 3 kids, man.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You know. I'll tell you who needs some extra caffeination. That's Heatherman, because he's got a scheme to stop these explosive wide receivers. When you're talking about, was it Bethel Roman, Concepcion, and then Mario Craver. All 3 of them had the same kind of style to them. They're not exactly replicas, but it's not like it's hey, this is the big contested catch guy. Here's the quicker than fast slot. Here's the speed vertical. They're all kind of the same kind of guy. They can do it after the catch, and they can run by you, and they have some quickness to them too. So matching up with our corners, which if you look at it, OJ Frederico will be back, bigger corner, 6+. Xavier Lucas on probably the highest end size-wise as a corner. Maybe stiffness is going to be his question as the speed. Then you look at Damari Brown, another 200+ pound cornerback. Ethan O'Connor maybe on the smaller side. Bryce Fitzgerald, when he plays the nickel, also has the speed and quickness. But with so many big corners going against so many little fast, explosive receivers, how do you see that matchup playing out? What are some of the keys as you look at that battle?
They're not that little. They're they're solid size. 5'11", 195 types.
Yeah, they break tackles.
That break tackles. Listen, they're good. They're very, very good. This is a good football team we are playing. And let me tell you, they are better at home, right? They're very good at home. Their numbers, their splits as I was kind of preparing and looking through them, they're much better at home. Of all the teams that we could have played in the first round, this is the toughest one, in my opinion. I think they're better than Oregon. I think Oregon's good too. Don't get me wrong, but I think this team's better than Oregon. And I think this wide receiver unit collectively is as good as anyone I've seen, right? You've got Ohio State. You kind of put them in their own tier. I'll give you that. But after Ohio State, this is collectively as good of a receiver group as I have seen. And I'll tell you, that Craver kid is good. He is really good.
I agree.
I went in thinking, okay, this is the Concepcion show. Also a really good player. But then I just kept thinking, who is this little guy that is like fast, like the 4.3 fast, 4.29 fast. And it's this Mario Craver kid that reminds you a lot and, does a lot of the similar things that Tony does. And the fact that he's not a small, soft player, right? He is tough and strong. And, that play that he made against Notre Dame was one of those like sit up and go, okay, who is this kid? As he like just ran through number 6 for Notre Dame. I think it's Martin or something along those lines, Christian something. It was a soft tackle attempt and he just ran right through it like it was nothing and then danced in the end zone. I was impressed with that kid a lot. Their third wide receiver, he would be number 1 for many to most.
Bethel Roman, right?
Yeah, great player. Yeah, very good player. He is a little bit more of your like boundary type wide receiver in my view than maybe the other two. Concepcion can do everything. He's an NFL player. absolutely could be the X. He can be your Z flanker. He could be your slot. He thrives in the slot. But what they really do with Mario Craver is just stretch that apex defender. And whenever I'm talking about that, I'm indicating like horizontally. They really want to split the field and space it sideways, right? And then your apex defender is the first defender inside your outside cornerback, right? Okay. And then your overhang or your hook defender is the next one inside of him, right? So anytime you hear anybody talk about the overhang or apex, they're talking about that first guy inside of your outside cornerback, right? A lot of times that's going to be an outside linebacker if you're doing what people call big nickel. For Miami, it's Keontae Scott, right? That's your apex defender, and he makes this defense go. Getting Keontae Scott back would just be absolutely huge because it allows you to really counteract what Texas A&M is trying to do offensively. And Mario Craver's speed, it doesn't just stress the apex defender, right? It obliterates him most of the time because you just don't have an apex defender. And let me back up and just explain that a little bit more. That apex defender, he has a run gap. So he has a fit, right? He's got the C gap in your run game, your apex defender does. But he also has the glance and the the slant in your RPO game. So the quarterback is reading your apex defender most of the time, right? And he puts him in what offenses call conflict, right? Because he has to make a choice. Is he going to step up and take that C gap run fit that he's responsible for, or is he going to stick in the RPO area? But what I just talked about, right, is Craver stretches you horizontally now. So now you've added a third element to what that apex defender has to do. You've got to have a really good player as your apex defender against Texas A&M. I saw a question, where's your mic? Your mic is kind of your middle, right? That's where your offense is going to set your coverage off of your mic. You always hear 52 is the mic, for your quarterback. They're setting their protection off of the mid guy, and that's your mic. And he moves, right? So when you split your defense, that doesn't mean he's right in the middle. Your defense can be balanced to one side or the other. And so your mic can be offset, right? And so first you grab your mic, then you got your overhang, then you got your apex, then you got your outside corner. A lot of terms there real quick to answer that one little question, but that's how Craver really stresses what you do defensively and how getting Scott back can help.
Yeah, and look, when I was saying that they're smaller, I wasn't trying to diminish it. What I was saying was, when we played Notre Dame, when I was playing Notre Dame, I was, one of my things was, look, yes, they have good receivers, great houses coming off that great playoff performance. Malachi Fields, we've seen him in the ACC. But I like matching up with those guys because we are big. So, they're not going to beat them with quickness. They're not going to really beat them in the open field. Whereas with like a Lucas, if you're looking at Xavier Lucas, I think he's been really good this year. I love Xavier Lucas. But if you look at him in this matchup, yeah, he has probably the straight line speed to run with guys, but he's a little stiffer. I mean, there's something's got to give when you're that size and you're that fast. He's just not the most fluid and quick guy in the world. And tackling, he's tough, but he's maybe not the most, coordinated and sudden tackler in space. Again, some of the stiffness stuff. So this to me is a tough matchup for a guy like that. And I don't know if there's a way where you can maybe use that size to make it a favorable matchup. Like, how can you get those bigger corners to bully some of these smaller players in a way that slows them down, gets them off their timing, as opposed to just catching the ball with plenty of space and letting them work and kind of make you look bad?
Yeah, I mean, one of the easy answers to that, right, is to have your front, get pressure quick enough that it doesn't allow some of those crossers and those overs that Texas A&M really likes to run, right? And those are the types of routes that hurt your bigger, longer corners who maybe, aren't quite as sudden as some of the smaller guys, right, and having to chase, right? If they get you in man and they're blocking you and you give them time to hit those overs, they're going to hurt you all day, right? And if you sit back and drop 8 or drop 7, all game and don't do some of your creepers and your presser packages that your general, going to make your money off of, right? Now they can run on you, right? And they can even do a +1 because Marcel Reed is, really good at running the ball, right? And so you can insert him as a +1 into your game, and what that means is now you've got another blocker, right? Because your quarterback just becomes a primary ball handler. So if you're going to sit back in coverage to take away some of those crossers and some of those stretches that they do, now they're going to be able to run the ball on you. So this is a good team. Obviously you go to the playoffs, you're going to play a good team. We say that all the time, right? And that's why the whole good losses thing was kind of silly to me, because all that proves is that you can lose in the playoffs, right? You can lose to good teams, because what are you going to play in the playoffs? You're going to play good teams. I really want to know what your highs are. And so this is going to be awesome. It's going to be so much fun to watch, Heatherman, attack Klein's offense. Klein is very good at adding gaps as well. So what I mean by adding gaps into the run game is you kind of go into a heavy package, right? And you add some tight ends outside of one another. So you no longer just have a C gap as your outside gap. Now you have, you've added a fourth gap out there. And sometimes I've even seen them add a fifth gap. And under Guidry in particular, not to give flashbacks, he very much struggled when the offense added a gap, because it's a communication issue, right? It's not something that the defense sees every play to have to account for that +1 gap. And when you have a quarterback who can run and actually attack the backside, right? If you overfit the +1 gap, now you're short to the weak side, or the non-play side, the pass side, really, a lot of times, because you run to the pass side and that becomes your offside. It messes up the communication that your defense is used to seeing. And so Klein's offense is a little bit different in that way. And then it stretches you horizontally, right? And then you've got wide receivers that can win the man matchups. And you're going to want to play man a lot against Marcel Reed because he can run. So, you want to play man against their wide receivers, because that's the way that you're going to match up with them better. And just trying to drop your linebackers back is going to be, offset. But if you don't run zone where you have eyes on the quarterback can run, right? So they put you in a quandary. It's a good team with a good system. You can see why Klein got the head coach job at Kansas State. Hopefully his attention's a little bit split, and he just, wants to get started on K-State a little faster. So,
but yeah, look, you hit on one of these things I was going to ask you about, which is you're playing zone and you're facing Reed, right? It's going to be better you don't want to play man against a running quarterback because you don't want your back turned to him when they're running around. You're facing him, plus he throws a lot of balls into harm's way. Yeah. But what I worry about playing too much zone against these guys is, you get these guys into one of those holes in the zone, and now they're runners, right, with space around them, and you got to deal with that problem. I'd rather if you're just telling me, if you're removing the aspect of Reed's running and you're saying, how do you want to cover these guys? I would rather have them play man and trust our pass rush to get there, because I don't know, man. Our secondary's tackled well this year, but I don't know against this level with this much space when there's three guys that can all really, really hurt you after the catch, letting them, catch these balls in the zone. Then they become, to me, even more dangerous. And if they're just running by you, catching a deep ball, right, you get burned on one or two.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I think what you're probably going to see is a lot of the Roscoe technique that Miami runs defensively, right? Where you're rushing outside, you're containing on the edge, right? So rather than trying to just rush, fast upfield, the worst place you can be in this game is behind Marcel Reed, right? Because now he's got areas to step up and run. And you're right, Miami probably does play more man in this game. I think that's why you paid all the money for all these defensive backs, is to be able to play man in a game like this. But I think it's very imperative that the defensive line stay in their rush lanes and kind of pinch Marcel Reed into the pocket, right, and prevent some of those escapes. That's the way I would play it personally against what I saw for them. But you are going to have to tackle against Texas A&M no matter how you set your defense up, because they are going to stretch you that way and force you to do so, especially with Concepcion and Craver.
Yeah, you said something interesting too, just generally. And I want to get Pete's thoughts. He did a quick bathroom break. I was glad he didn't take his microphone. He's a seasoned pro.
My mic ran out of battery.
Oh, his mic ran out of battery. All right, so he might just be chilling here, hanging out there for his appearance. But he'll be produce mode. But in terms of, like you said, Texas A&M is the best team we could have played first round. You know, I lean Oregon, but I would put them in the same category. To me, the most complete teams in this tournament right now, and I won't stack them, but if I'm just saying the 6, the 3 Big Ten teams to me, in terms of being able to throw, having physicality to them, having a pretty well-rounded team. Texas A&M for sure. Georgia, although they were a little one-dimensional earlier in the year, I think they've rounded it to form. And then Miami. Really, to me, those are the 6 best teams. And 2 of them are playing in this game, in my view. Maybe I'm being a homer, but just in terms of being complete, right? In terms of being complete. And with Texas A&M, their running game. We talked about on the show that the run game is kind of taking a step back without Le'Veon Moss. He should
the big guy, right?
The big guy, yeah. But you look at their numbers; they're still top 25 in most of the relevant rushing categories. Obviously, their quarterback being part of the running game factors in there. But watching them against Notre Dame, watching them when Moss was rolling, they look to me like a pretty darn good running team with that offensive line when he is there. So when you're like just preparing it for this game, every defensive coordinator is going to say you got to stop the run first. Right? That's the defensive coordinator mantra. But in this particular game, I think it's even more important to take away that running game and make Marcel Reed beat you as a passer, even with all the explosiveness we've been talking about. How do you see that stacking up, Miami versus Texas A&M's running game?
Yeah, I mean, if Texas A&M lives in 2nd and 2, 3rd and 2, it's going to be a long day for Miami, right? Because that's going to be very difficult to get off of the field with just the power that they have in their run game, the offensive line that they have. But also that's when they go hunting for the explosives, right? So you have to play safe in those, 3rd and 2 situations, 2nd and 2 situations, because they are going to be hunting explosives at the same time, right? And another thing that, I would kind of get to is Klein's very aggressive on 4th down, right? They're not especially great on 3rd down, but I think some of that's by design, right? So if you've got a 3rd and 7 against them, they're happy to pick up 5, right? They're happy to pick up 5 and then they're going to go for that 4th down. So I do think it's imperative for the defense, to play those 3rd and 7s like their 3rd and 3s a little bit more, right? And try and prevent them from, getting close on the 4th down, because that's also when they get pretty creative, right? They really, they hide a lot of their 12, 13 big package plays for some of those fourth down plays. And they're top 10 in the country in converting those 4th down plays for a reason, because, they really set it up as you kind of go along. So it's every time you get me on this pod and you ask me what the keys are, it's the same every time, right? It's get them into 3rd and longs. It's avoid explosives, create turnovers, and it's flip side when you got the ball, offensively, right? You're going to be looking to, avoid turnovers. Texas A&M is very good at forcing turnovers, both with their pass rush and, in the secondary, they are definitely hunting the football as you're kind of like moving around. You got to avoid some of those fumbles that happen. They want to get you behind the sticks and get you into 3rd and 7. And I believe they're number 1 in the country, right, against 3rd downs. And a lot of that is because of the way that they get you into those 3rd and 7. And I might as well kind of jump into it a little bit here, but what they try and do on those 3rd and longs defensively is they get into boss fronts, right? And what that really means is they overload one side, right? So if I've got typically 3, rushers to one side, right? Including like however you slant your nose, right? And maybe I insert a 4th look with some sort of simulated pressure. I have overloaded that side, right? So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to force the offense to slide their protection to that side. And if I don't get them to slide, I'm trying to get them to offset their running back to that side, right? Expecting that 4th or 5th rusher coming from the boss side. And you then want the offense to slide their protection to that side. And then typically you teach your quarterback to throw the ball into the blitz, right? You're going to try and hit the area that the defender vacates as they kind of blitz, right? What Texas A&M does as well as anybody, and Mike Elko has really kind of made his name on on the defensive side, is in the way that they trick the offense with those boss looks, right? Because what they do is they get you to slide your protection, and then they bring it from the other side. So they bring pressure from the other side, either with some sort of nickel or corner blitz, we call that a cat blitz as well, or they insert a safety late. And then what they do is then rotate and rob. So they'll either drop out one of those guys that looks like he's going to blitz from the boss side, and you throw into it, as I talked about, and that's when they trap you into, interceptions there, or they rob it, right? So they anticipate what your, counter to that pressure is going to be, and they rob that area, right? Flip side of that, though, if we can get a Fletcher and we can get some of those max protects and block up those situations where they do those, exotic pressures, that's when you can hunt explosives, right? You can hunt, Tony on some of those deep overs. There's not a corner in the country that can stick with Tony for 5 seconds on a deep over, right? So if you can block that up and get to some of those 4 seconds in the pocket before you throw it, you're going to find a way to hit some explosives there. That's a fascinating matchup to me. Do they get home with some of those boss looks that they do and get Miami to slide wrong or get back to guess wrong and throw into the coverages? Or does Miami take advantage of those opportunities and hit some of those explosives deep, either, with the deep overs that, get catch and run opportunities? Maybe you throw screen into it, and kind of hit them in the right looks. And then the other thing that Texas A&M really does defensively, that's kind of what their DNA is they really do stunting up front with their 4, right? So they're going to do all kinds of in-tackle twists. They're going to do tackle-tackle twists. They're going to do what are called loopers, or, they're long gap. So the guy who typically would have the C now has the A, and so he's looping from the outside in and long gapping some of those inside duo runs that Miami does. But what that does is it also opens up gaps, right? As those guys are moving, if you're able to hit them quick and in the right spot, you can get some explosive run plays as well.
Lance, a lot of what you're talking about sounds like not only with the games they run up front, but the pressure they try to bring from the back end. It sounds like the communication up front, it really needs to be of the utmost importance. I mean, how much does the crowd factor into how they generally communicate up front?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. One more time, Pete.
I said a lot of what you're talking about sounds like the communication in terms of the offensive line and the center, and Beck has to really be on point.
On the road, yeah.
On the road in that atmosphere. I mean, how much of the crowd can affect that?
Yeah, it's tough to say how much the crowd is actually impacting, what Miami does from a count and a protection standpoint, but it sure doesn't hurt, right? To have 100,000 crazy, fans yelling and screaming and impacting some of that. It only takes once too, right, to turn a game. One miscommunication where you get a free rusher, Beck doesn't see it, gets a sack fumble, and Texas A&M gets points out of it. We all expect this to be a fairly close game, right, where one score can really swing it either way. So it only takes once for that to happen. But you are 100% on point. This is a game where communication in your protection, in your front, it all has to be on point. You have to be able to do it silent as well, because you're not going to be able to hear. The numbers show, Texas A&M is much stronger as a defense from an EPA, from a yard per play standpoint at home. And you got to think that, the crowd and some of those things definitely impact that.
And the opponent, I think, tell me if I'm being a homer here, but I think this is a good game. I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's the best game of the opening weekend. I think Texas A&M obviously can win the game. They're an extremely formidable opponent. They're as good or better than any team we played this year, meaning Notre Dame, really. So I have all the respect. And on the offensive side, I got a lot of respect for them. Watching their defense, the running game is going to be interesting, obviously, because they really struggle outside, and we need to get better running outside. But in terms of the ability, like I think about Pitt, which is a very aggressive defense. And I thought Pitt ran into a lot of problems because of Miami's pass protection. And the fact that you have, and Kyle got to this, you have tight splits. So all the movement and stuff is a little less effective because they're just basically a wall. And then behind them, you have a Mark Fletcher, who is, to me, the best pass blocking back I've seen in the country. I haven't seen them all, but I wouldn't trade him when it comes to that particular function. So do you think that just Miami's offense against Texas A&M's defense, that there's certain matchups that could favor us, given that our strength is pass blocking, and you're going against an aggressive defense that maybe has some tackling and issues in the back end?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier, right? I would force them to tackle over and over and over all day. Mike Elko took over the defensive calling this year. I do believe, I think they kind of made a switch in that to where he's making the calls now, or he's certainly, more involved with the game plan, something along those lines. And you've seen more chaos from their front with Elko, but a direct quote from Elko is, we can't defend the forward pass. Right. So that right there tells you that, yeah, there are definitely gaps and opportunities in that intermediate area. The deep can be a little bit more, variance there. But with the intermediate area, I do believe that's an area that you can attack Texas A&M. Miami, to me, is a top 5 offensive line in the country. I always expect that they're going to protect back and give him time and reduce some of those pressures, right? So when I see a team that's so dependent on their front, creating chaos and creating pressure, and they really do it with games a lot, right? I think that's a big advantage for Miami. I think Miami is one of those teams that's built to, counteract Texas A&M's big strength. I haven't made a pick yet. But, we're talking about a road playoff game where I'm strongly, leaning towards Miami. And your listeners know, I'll tell you straight, I'm not one who picks Miami every week or thinks they're a homer in every game. But I do believe that there are particular matchups with what Texas A&M has built their DNA on that lines up with Miami's, strengths and what they can take away or what they can exploit. I'm excited for this game because of those reasons. I do not think Texas A&M has a talent advantage either. I think these teams are very even when it comes to that respect, if not even, tilted towards Miami. But I go back to the fact that, Texas A&M's defense is front dependent. They are chaos dependent. They are pressure dependent from their front four. And what Miami does literally better than every other team in America is protect and prevent those pressures. And I think that, sets up well for Miami. And then one of Texas A&M's, deficiencies is that intermediate area and that tackling from their DBs. They're also not super great about interceptions. I said earlier, they're great about turnovers. Now, remember, that's more attacking the football with their linebackers and their DBs, not necessarily interceptions, but then they also trap, right? So they'll drop fronts into those areas and they'll get hands on footballs that way, not necessarily just your outside corner lining up and, taking the ball away from your wide receiver because they're better.
Awesome. Lance, you're the man. Thank you, Cannata Financial, for getting this one done. You are the professor. The people love it. We will have you back next week. So even more time to break down tape and see where this thing goes. Have a great weekend, man.
All right, we'll give some predictions next week. All right, I expect peak Danny hype next year or next week. First playoff game in the college football era for Miami. I expect both of you to be on point next week, and we'll regroup next week and talk about the ways Miami's going to win. All right.
I need to have like 7 or 8 cups of coffee to be on point like you for that one.
We'll get it. I'm going to be hyped up next Friday. I can promise you.
Hey, we'll have some fun. Let's get back to the lab.
See
All
you
right,
then,
Lance.
boys. Take care.
Appreciate you. Oh, the best. Yeah, Pete, look, a lot of downtime before the game. So if you want your free and time and your downtime to work for you, you know what it is. KashKick, KashKick in the App Store, 4.5 plus average rating, 1.5 million plus downloads, one of the biggest apps in the country. You download the app, playing games on your phones. It will consolidate for you. Surveys, different kind of browsing you can do all through the app. You make money on the side. It goes right to your PayPal. It is that easy. It's that simple. It's that straightforward. KashKick, KashKick. Give your free time a raise. You're already gaming, browsing, sharing your opinions. What if that time earned your real money? Sign up today. KashKick, KashKick. You always get comments on your position with these Duffy shows. Someone says that EJ says it ain't right. Every time you guys go to Duffy's, you make Pete look like a little kid. Fix the angle. Other times people say you look jacked. I saw some comments on your sweater.
I've told you before we should try to line up on the same thing, but it's tough with the laptop.
Yeah, I'm looking huge right now.
The laptops would be up against each other.
We'll take turns, so we can take turns being the big guy and the small guy.
Listen, I don't need the optics. I don't need the optics. I'm good.
So Pete, pull up this tweet because I want to talk about this. Yeah, with a certain quarterback. This is the tampering segment of the podcast, right? We're 10:35. I think we talked a lot about Texas A&M and Miami. I think we're in tampering mode here. So wanted to talk about the next quarterback for the University of Miami. We've both been digging. It's a hard thing to get information on, but this quote caught my attention, and I want to get your reaction first, Pete, before I give my thoughts. NC State quarterback C.J. Bailey on his approach to looking at his future after. So he's playing the bowl. Remember, Mendoza last year didn't play the bowl. What's he doing after he plays in the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa? He says, I plan to go home, talk to my mom and dad, just relax, enjoy my time off. Just think about the game coming up and let everything else handle itself. I'm not too much into what's going on outside of what's in this building right now. That's getting a win in the bowl game. Pete, what's your read when you see this statement and this whole approach?
Plan to go home, talk to my mom and dad, take a little drive down the street to Coral Gables, maybe. I mean, look, obviously, I think he's going to be leaving NC State. I think that's probably the writing would be on the wall there, in my opinion. I don't think that it's set in stone, but you start to make comments like this, and I think you almost set the fan base up over there for what's to come. I give him credit for playing in the bowl game. We've seen guys who don't even go through the bowl, playing the bowl game itself, who are going to transfer. So I give him credit there, and I think he remains a very legitimate option for Miami to be Miami's quarterback next year. Obviously, we've seen Sam Levitt entering the portal, very talented guy with pedigree. Sellers, we've gone through. Sorsby, we've gone through. We don't know if some of these guys are entering the portal. We don't know if they're going pro. A lot of questions to be asked, but I think what remains, based on what I've heard, is that Bailey is a legitimate option still for Miami here.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see. And you said it, Pete, which is, like last year, Mendoza didn't even play in the bowl, which was an interesting move at the time. Beck, who obviously turned out great for the Canes, it wasn't the best exit necessarily from Georgia. Not saying him or anybody else. There were some mixed emotions on both sides with that one. It'd be cool if this is the way Miami goes, if it was like a clean kind of deal, right? Where plays in the bowl, wins the bowl, says, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for your service. I know that they really love CJ Bailey over there in Raleigh. Like, you see the fan base, they like CJ Bailey. It's not one of those things. Like, sometimes you get one of these guys in the portal and the old fans and the old coaches are like, good luck, right? Whereas with him, it seems like they really want to keep him. I still think this is the cleanest fit, Pete. Just when you look at the whole thing, like with Levitt, who I think can be a really, really good player. The fact that it's an ugly breakup, right, with Arizona State. He didn't go to the banquet. I know your boy, what's his name, the coach Dillingham, was doing a very favorable post about him leaving, putting on a public face. It doesn't seem like it's that nice of an exit based on what the fans are saying, based on not going to that banquet.
Didn't seem like the thing about not going to the banquet too is it doesn't seem like he told anyone he wasn't showing up.
Right.
It probably would have been a different situation if he had been communicating all this stuff. And then you had the leaks, almost like 3-4 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about it here at Duffy's almost a month ago with the leaks coming out of his brother. I think that happened. We were live on a show here. So, that's an interesting one. We'll see what happens, man. I think Bailey, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons.
A lot of sense. And I want to
considering that, again, when we go through this, and I talked about it last year, it's easy to go back and say, well, we should have taken Mendoza. And you say, well, who else would you have rather had other than Mendoza, who's going to win the Heisman, who it ended up turning out well for Miami with Beck, obviously. Yeah. But hindsight's always 20/20. And I look at this situation now. Everyone who's out there has flaws. There's going to be flaws with anyone. And then there's going to be guys who maybe are less flawed. Like, to me, a Sorsby is a great combination of everything. But is he going to go to the NFL? Is he going to have suitors elsewhere? You still have, by the way, too, this Bryce Underwood thing that's about to play out with Michigan. Is Steve Sarkisian staying at Texas, which is a whole nother massive domino to play out. So I think Miami continues to position themselves to act quickly once the portal is officially open. But at the same time, listen, D, I think with like Cam Ward a couple of years ago, it's December 12th. I think Cam Ward had already visited or was visiting like this week a couple of years ago. And the portal period was different too. So that factored into it. But like, I think Miami still wants to really get this thing done quickly. But at the same time, there are so many things out there that, going back to a couple of years ago, we knew they wanted. Cam Ward was one of their one or two guys that they wanted. Will Howard also being a guy who was heavily in the mix. Right now, I can't definitively tell you like if they could choose a guy, if they knew who it would be right now. I don't know that they have that answer, which is making this pursuit very speculative. But I think it's going to be very fun to track.
And we didn't know what was happening with Beck last year. I will say, and P, me and you are actually very much, I know we have our little arguments on the show. We've been on the same page pretty much with most of these quarterbacks. But I remember when Beck had his surgery and it became clear that it'd be a Purdy-like recovery, meaning he'd be able to play the next year as opposed to like, you know, a pitcher with Tommy John. And I remember it was around this time, we both said on the show, I think we were the first show to, I know we were the first show to talk about it.
Because we did it speculatively.
UM was not in that picture yet. We said, what's wrong with Beck? A lot of pushback, by the way, at the time. Just as much pushback as there was on Mendoza, to be honest with you. But you know, in terms of this particular process, the thing I like about Bailey is it'd be a clean deal. Obviously, I hope he doesn't get hurt in the bowl game. But the fact that he is somebody who, if he's healthy through the bowl game, no issues with his, you know, leaving it, he can't go NFL anyway. He's got 2 years of eligibility. If he just slides right in, now you have spring practice with Beck. To me, the only real negative on Beck was he just couldn't practice in spring. So there was a process over the course of the season where now he's speaking. Wouldn't trade him for anybody right now as we sit here December 12th. Thankfully, we're in the playoffs. But, you know, if he has spring, does he hit the ground running even further? Is there more confidence? Do we have that little spurt of Louisville and SMU of picks and just kind of bad timing? Can he roll through that? We'll see. Those are things to consider because all of these guys have their own thing that you got to work through and project to say, how are they going to fit in Miami's system when it comes to this? One stat I want to get your reaction to, Pete, because I posted this on CanesInSight, 7.7 million posts and counting. But I did a comparison. I want to get your reaction to this, where I posted the stats of, and it's kind of, I'll read it out to you here. CJ Bailey with his 2 years at NC State. Remember, this guy started as a true freshman, so these are his first 2 years at NC State. He's a true sophomore now. Mendoza redshirted his first year and then started the next redshirt freshman and redshirt sophomore at Cal before jumping the portal. So it's kind of an apples-to-apples comparison. Mendoza actually had an extra year. But CJ Bailey, 68%, 5,297 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt, 40 touchdowns, 19 picks, 494 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns. Mendoza, 66% passer, 4,712 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, 30 touchdowns, 16 picks, 197 rushing yards, 4 TDs. So pretty much across the board, apples to apples, Bailey's actually been the more productive quarterback. And I think it's pretty comparable given that Mendoza had 1 year in Pac-12, 1 year in ACC. The supporting cast were not more materially different, I don't think. Maybe Bailey has a little more skill talent around him, but it's pretty similar. That doesn't mean that Bailey comes here and wins the Heisman as the first pick of the draft. I'm just saying when you look at it from this angle, it shows how you have to not only take their their floor, which is what they're already doing in the conference, but maybe project some ceiling when you put them in a new situation. So what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm a fan of his, because I still think that there's so much development still to go, and I think he could be a great fit in what Miami likes to do here, right? And I think that's part of this process that we can sit here and say, well, we watched Levitt, we've seen what he's done, we've big fan of Lenore Sellers' talent, and from the outside looking in, these are all intriguing options, but what's it going to look like fitting into what Shannon Dawson wants to do and what the type of skill set and weapons that Miami has around him. And that's why I just think that what he's done at NC State with a limited amount of help there, because a lot of times when we talk about these guys, they have better weapons around them than people realize. It's a lot of times it's more just about the protection. I don't think he has premier weapons on the outside around him. I think Jolie is a good tight end.
Yes.
I think Hollywood Smothers is a nice back. You know, wasn't able to get going against us because of the O-line again. But I think you pair the O-line with legitimate elite weapons and to go a long way. And then you really, obviously, you want him to have the sort of season that he can leave after 1 year, but there's also the possibility that you have him for multiple years, which is a different aspect of this pursuit than we've had the last couple.
Yeah, I feel like if he leaves, we're in pretty good shape. That means he was number one pick or something like that, or first round pick because he had a great year. So, you know, if he has a normal year where there's still room to develop, he has that time to develop. So, you know, very interesting situation there with CJ Bailey. Hope to see him have a good bowl game and then kind of see what happens. With Sellers, the thing that I keep saying is I love Sellers, but I see him as a guy, you got to use him like Jalen Hurts. You got to use him like Tim Tebow in college. You got to run him. And I don't know, with Dawson coming back, and that's another thing. We talked about Dawson earlier, Pete. Him coming back, now you're saying like, all right, well, we know, we're assuming he's coming back. Who knows what the dominoes are. But with him potentially coming back, it's not just who's the best player in a vacuum or who's the best talent in a vacuum. It's how much do they fit the system of a Shannon Dawson. I think Bailey, 70% passer, a guy that, he's very comfortable checking down, he short passes in stride. He has good ball placement a lot of time. He can throw deep if he needs to, has a good arm. I think there's a fit there with Dawson to me.
I do too. And I think that's like when Dawson goes down and sits and watches all of these guys, remember, he's looking at what can I do with this guy as well. It's not what they're currently doing in their situation. And I think that Bailey is someone that he'd be very interested in. Not that he wouldn't in the others, but I think he's in that mix, man.
Yeah, no, so we will keep an eye on that one. Obviously, holiday season, guys. So wanted to announce a very, very cool event here. So pull it up right here. Check this out. You recognize that guy right there, Ruben Bain. The Hurricane Team Store and the Brian Pata Foundation will team up for the 25th annual Hurricane Holiday Shopping Spree for Kids presented by Milan's Markets on Tuesday and Wednesday, December 16th and December 17th. So both days, 4:30 to 6 p.m. 50 children from the Police Athletic League, Boys and Girls Club, and the home team will each receive a $95 shopping spree to honor the legacy of Pata, who's an awesome player, man, former University of Miami football player who wore 95, so I get the $95 shopping spree. University of Miami cheerleading squad, shout out to Ceci Esteban, everything she does with those girls. Sebastian the Ibis, and select Hurricane student athletes and head coaches will also attend. Other sponsors include the Pat Tavelli Foundation, 324 Creative, Affiliated Healthcare Center, Big Cheese, Crepe Makers, and Flanagan's. Over its 25-year history, the shopping spree has delivered holiday cheer to more than 1,000 at-risk children. The event was launched by Neil Badesky, Game Plan, Inc., and HTS, Miami HTS General Manager Harry Rothwell, and coordinated annually by Betsy Trids. The Hurricane Team Store is located at 1340 South Dixie Highway, Coral Gables, Florida, 33146. For more information on the Hurricane Holiday Shopping Spree, contact Neil Badesky at 305-778-6325. So some good stuff there, some holiday cheer for a really great cause, and it's cool to see Miami student athletes working on that as they get ready for biggest game in since puberty.
We've been saying it. We've said it like 4 times this year. The biggest game in 20 years, but this is actually the biggest game in 20 years. So, biggest game since 01 national championship.
That's it.
Or I guess 02.
Yeah, they had a big game tomorrow, right? So is a basketball game?
Yeah, big game against Louisiana Monroe. Not the biggest game in 20 years, but it'll be nice to hopefully keep the momentum going heading into ACC play. So, looking forward to that. We'll do. Not sure if I'll do something right after the game, but Sunday at the very least.
And hopefully Timo Malovich still letting it fly. Let's see, just keep shooting. Mm-hmm. Keep shooting. That's what it's going to take to win these ACC games. Bread and butter is going to be defense, going to be physical play, going to be inside play. Malik Renew. I saw a list of transfers. Mm-hmm. They had him as a top 3 transfer in the country, like after having seen him play.
Listen, I did a reel on it the other day, but he's 3rd in the country right now in 20-point most 20-point games. That's consistent. That's really, really consistent. So he's going to be Miami's go-to guy offensively. And he's doing a good job, I think, too, of he's not shooting a ton of threes, but the shot looks good. And I think if he can hit one a game, talking to someone who's in the talent evaluation space, and I was watching a game with the other day, if he can hit a three-pointer a game, it completely changes the way that teams guard him. You have to respect it. So
he can handle that. No, he's been and he's just, I like his attitude. I like this whole team's attitude.
Joel asking about injuries because you've had Dante Allen out, Marcus Allen. I don't know. I haven't asked about that. I mean, the expectation was Dante Allen will be out for a couple weeks here. So, and then this started. The first game he was out was that Ole Miss game a couple weeks ago now at this point. So I don't know the extent of the injury. I know DU saw him at the women's game walking around. It was an upper extremity, but I've seen him too. I didn't see any casts or anything. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's shoulder. I don't want to speculate. But generally, I would say rest him. Maybe get him one more game. They have another game here after ULM before Pitt. Maybe get him a game to get his feet back wet before ACC play if he's healthy. Marcus Allen will be big for ACC play as well. But neither of those seem like it was going to be something that stretched into ACC. So,
yeah, look, shout out, by the way, to Angela Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or somebody care about an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. It's starting to fill up here, Pete. The Friday lunch hour is starting to come in, so we'll join the party. Again, appreciate everybody. Over 1,400 on live. Like and subscribe to the show. Go Canes.
Go Canes.